Smash Factor.
Ripping driver, going for it. Oh my goodness. How about that tee shot?
That is crazy how far that is.
Wow. John Daly, take a back seat, big fella. How about that drive?
That's an aggressive line. That is beyond long.
Look at this, he's just driven the green. He has just driven the green.
I guess hello world, huh?
Welcome everybody to week 15 of the 2020-21 PGA season. The Amex this week, or the American Express, been called many different names over the last many years. And you get a little different twist this week with the COVID pandemic stuff going on, make some changes. We'll go through that in the tourney preview. First, we'll quickly recap last week. For me personally, I'll take last week's results. I think I lost 12 to 15% of total bankroll, not total, but the weekly. And I had no Na, Morikawa, or Steele. So not having those and still basically, at times was up, in the top 2%, 1% in several tournaments as Sunday kind of unfolded. And even Saturday when Na kind of made his first charge, definitely knew that I was going to need him to go away. Needed Niemann to get the win, had plenty of Niemann. But when a week like that happens, on top of it, we get one of the highest 6 of 6 we've seen with the new cut rules, the T65 and ties, plus a close to full field, 25-ish% or so, depending on the contest you're in, was crazy. Hadn't seen anything like that. I'd say virtually everybody. I think Answer may have been the chalkiest, kind of highest guy that missed the cut, which that was probably the only thing that saved me. I had 0 Answer. And so and not only that, like a lot of those players up there all kind of finished where they needed to as far as returning value. So it really made where you could have had a lot of right parts and still just an okay week. You really had to have the nuts per se to get up there in the big money. Na was 7-8% in most tournaments, sometimes lower in some of the higher stakes ones. So having him definitely give you that edge. But at the end of the day, I'll take it. Not much I can take from it. I don't know how much, as far as looking at this year compared to the prior years there, what we gleaned from the results, if there's anything. I mean, the narrative story of playing in the week before definitely helped. Na, and he was kind of on my radar. I mean, he was never high in the rankings. He was playable. He was definitely in my next to last pool. I went back and researched that Sunday night, but I, didn't get to him. I didn't because he was almost dead last at Tournament of Champions. So I didn't let that bother me too much. I think it helps. And then even this week, we've seen some, results on guys that at least played one of the first 2 weeks be a thing. It doesn't mean that I'm going to let it overweigh any of my opinions. It definitely is something I'll take a look at, mainly just because are they shaking off rust? Are they not? A different format this week compared to years past, so they don't get 3 courses. But I mean, at the end of the day, I'm still going to put it all in and kind of make I think playing definitely helps in general, whether it's now or even in the middle of the season. If you haven't played much, staying in form and stuff like that. A lot of these guys are still coming out this week, and this is their first week since Mayakoba or RSM or something, because if they weren't in tournament champions, maybe they didn't want to go over to Hawaii, more of an expensive trip for those guys. But I mean, most of them can afford it, but some guys just decide, hey, I'm just going to take the Hawaii off and I'll start back on the West Coast. So be interesting to see how that is and how the industry treats it, for guys that didn't play in one of the first 2 versus, guys that may have been in pretty good form heading into the break, and how much of that do we trust? Decent week for me betting wise. Hit the first round leader, chopped it. We had Kokrak. I haven't recapped the full thing. I normally do that a little bit later on this morning, and I'll get those results out. But overall, the way I've changed, like I mentioned, much lower volume of plays and really focusing on the ones I really, really like has turned out to be positive so far. Had Neiman there on Sunday. Saturday, early, mid, still had a few other guys that were kind of poking around. So definitely had their, pieces to get there Sunday. Just, Neiman had a horrible day Sunday. So that really kind of hurt not only potential betting, but the DK results as well. Overall, looking forward to this week, full field. I think we got 154 priced in DraftKings now. Probably have Monday Qs. I'm not completely sure on if those, they're not added yet, but there may be another couple. I think 156 is the max here, but looking forward to it. I think last week was, in general, solid for the community. Had a bunch of guys get up there, a bunch of high scores, and so put it in the bag, and we'll get to that next year. We'll see how. The weather was about what we thought it would be. Nothing to make note of for next year as far as my review. As always, use the code SMASH20, get 20% off. We are ramping up the development on the new site, making great progress there. I can't wait to debut it to the community. No better time to join now. We're locked and loaded with football. With golf every single week from basically here till I think September before we actually get a week break. We get the Olympics and stuff, which we'll probably still kind of cover just because that's a cool, deal. Ryder Cup, we'll talk about it. So you could have some weeks off there per se, but with football coming to an end, but we're ramping up NBA daily. MLB's right around the corner. NASCAR's right around the corner. UFC's fired back up. 2 events this week. Saturday is a big one, so big pots there. We got you covered on all that stuff. And the great thing about our pricing is it all includes everything. You just have one choice to make, whether you want our tools and lineup generator and all that stuff, or you just want the content. That's the only decision you have to make. And then whether you want weekly, monthly, or annual. But you can use that code. I would use it. Now is as good of a time to join before we start rolling out all the new stuff, which is, we've rolled out some stuff last week people liked a lot, and we're going to continue basically almost weekly adding to what we have out there. And that was kind of our commitment to the community when we put out the 2021 vision for the community. So we're keeping to that, keeping on pace, actually ahead of pace right now, I would say. Last week I added, also if you want some gear, these hats are now in the store. Originally we did pre-sale only, but we wound up buying a few extra. So it's a limited quantity, but if you want some, you can use the code ALOHA. Last week of that, I'll change it, but 20% off anything in there. So this hat or the old originals, you go check that out. I did add my ownership projections into the Green Machine. Continuing, we have about probably 5 to 8 more things coming to that. Well, there's probably gonna be a lot more than that, but things like yesterday we've locked in and are gonna add and continue to develop that and the way that we want it to roll. It'll work even better in the new environment, which we've talked to the community about. We have our PGA Sweat section in the PGA Tool Center now. That'll be enhanced and grow over the next 2 weeks as well. A lot of good feedback on that from the community. I'll probably do a video on kind of all that stuff for the community so you guys kind of understand all that. And I'm close to doing a new video for the PGA tools because I think we've enhanced enough and we got our community using them enough that, kind of showing more of what can be done with them because I think a lot of people get lost or confused at times. So I've been putting notes together to get that out as well. Listener League is up. It'll be included in the pod description. $7.50, 3 max as always. Very low rate, lowest DK allows for non-DK providers. Quicker we fill it, the bigger we make it. Obviously, with football coming to an end, we want to push that thing up there. 300 entries this week. It is posted if you want to go check it out or check the description in the podcast. Last week's winner, Winnie Boom Boom. He's kind of been on a little bit of a streak. He was the one that won the trip to the Honda last year for the DFS Open and all that. So another great week by him. He had Neiman, Scott, Munoz, Kazire, Siwoo, and Na. So all guys that I either had, I did have all of them except for Na. I just didn't get to Na in any builds. So close 2 weeks in a row. Hadn't lost much, so you just kind of keep grinding. I didn't have Na. I hadn't had the winner in any builds the first 2 weeks. And I haven't lost that much, so I kind of take that as it sucks not to win, but when your builds are so good that you're not losing a ton or breaking even, and you didn't have the winner in a single lineup, especially if you're doing MMEs. You just gotta, it sucks, but you gotta go, all right, just stick to the process and yours will come. Quick tourney preview. As always, I will push you towards Kenny Kim for the full breakdown, and he puts his article out on the site and then enhances it Wednesday with his favorite plays in each range, bets, and his finalized cash game cornerstones. This year, as you'll probably hear on every podcast, I don't want to regurgitate it, but in case people, this is one of their few they do listen to, it's 2 courses instead of 3. There's no Pro-Am. They're using the Jack Nicklaus course and the Stadium course. Stadium course will get 3 rounds. So the guys will play Jack or Stadium Thursday, Friday. They'll alternate it, and then they play the Stadium Saturday and Sunday. In years past, if you remember, it's been 3 courses and then a cut, and then I think it was T60, not T65 on that scenario. And then Sunday was always the Stadium. So they only got 2 courses on the Stadium. These are the 2 harder, quote unquote, of the 3, but they both still ranked inside the top 10 of easiest courses on tour last year. As of now, I would target the Jack Nicklaus for showdowns on round 1 and round 2. It played 1.1 strokes easier than the Stadium as a whole last year. Doesn't mean, and we learned this, last year, kind of said it doesn't mean guys can't go low on the Stadium. The interesting thing will be more about how do they set the course up, because I think one of the reasons that they've been 3 of the top 10 easiest courses when they played all 3 is because of the Pro-Am. They can't set the pins up, which is one of the biggest deals, where they would tour pins, if you will. The boxes and length doesn't matter as much because the AMs go off a different tee box than the pros. They could stretch them out a little bit this year, but more than anything, I think it's the pin locations and stuff, because you put some of these pins in a difficult position. These AMs would struggle for days, and you would have 6-7+ hour rounds. They were already hard. They have enlarged the greens a little bit, put a new TIF Bermuda, which is very common where I'm at. So it's still Bermuda, but a better quality Bermuda, I would say. A lot of people have gone to that, especially down here in the South. A lot of courses around me use TIF, but I think the biggest thing I think you'll see is that, and I think the scoring won't be as high for both reasons. One, the easiest track is thrown out. You get 3 rounds on the quote unquote hardest track, and then potential for pin locations to be a little bit tougher than normal. Weather doesn't look to be too concerning. Showers for the practice rounds right now. Looks like they're going to get some rain today and potentially tomorrow, but no rain really in the tournament days until Saturday. Some chilly mornings to start out, especially these guys have been playing in Hawaii. They're going to be low 40s, a couple of these mornings, but very little wind for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So not a lot to worry about there. I pulled out all I used our tool center, the rounds, the hole scoring as a cumulative for Stadium course and then for Jack Nicklaus course. And, so for last year, and I did a 3-year and a 5-year, but in general, it looked like you would get about a high end would be around 14 under, 15 under. I think my average was actually 14.7. And that includes 1 round at Jack, which played about 2.7 strokes under par, and Stadium played 1.6 under par per day. So I would say the average guy is going to be, just doing that and kind of looking at it even deeper would be around -8. That doesn't mean the winning score is going to be 8. And again, these aren't on as hard of locations as what would be. Sunday was always the harder, so I looked at that because there was no amateurs on Sunday, so they could tuck the pins a little bit better. I really think, we could potentially see like a 12, 13, 14 under type deal. I don't think we get anywhere close to 20 under. I'm going to put it between 14 and 16, and I think that could potentially be high. Pete Dye courses are, and that's the Stadium club or Stadium course, are difficult when you look at some of the other ones on the tour. So I think being that they'll be able to play full tour conditions all 4 days, 3 of the days on a stadium course. I'm kind of playing it as a little bit harder than what maybe the industry will. I don't know. I haven't really listened to any pods yet, and I could be way off. We're all taking a stab here, not knowing exactly how they plan to set it up. They don't have to worry about long rounds, being with no amateurs or anything, so they can set it up however they want. The Jack course is a par 72, 7,200, 4 par 5s, Bermuda greens, as I mentioned. It's really a second shot course, so your approach, your irons, you're around the green if you do miss. And I may, especially in the deep dive, I may look at some bogey avoidance type stuff because I don't think many will go that route, and I think it could matter. And that may just set us out a little bit differently than the industry. But they only play them once on that course, so I didn't put a whole lot of effort and I looked at it and all that, and it does matter, especially getting through the cut. But as I said, the stadium course is a par 72, 7,200 as well. Pete Dye track, 4 par 5s as well. So we got 8 par 5s in general. Bermuda greens. There's a lot of water on this course, a lot of bunkers. Being in the right spot off the tee is important to set yourself up to get as close to the pin as possible. I think the guys that have great approach, opportunity, scoring opportunities inside 12 feet is something I'm looking at. Those kind of things. And then, in the deep dive stuff, I'm definitely going to look at some, our stroke gain irons, which blends approach and around the greens, probably some bogey avoidance. I still want to look at par 5 and all that. Good drives is definitely something that gives you who's hitting it somewhat accurate, give you and yourself a chance, and still getting some length out there. In general, smaller greens and tour average as well for the stadium course. So being on the greens is important, but being, close is definitely a plus this week when we're looking at that kind of type of golfer to win this. I already went through the weather conditions, so I'm going to go with the cut. I think it's going to be around, I'm going to go -2. It could be even or -1, honestly, but I'm going to go -2 as the cut just because it's T65. I flirted back and forth between -2, -3, and I said I got the winning score 14-16. Prior winners here since they went to the 3-course rotation, which was 2016, is Duffner, Swafford, Rahm, Long, and Landry. So a few long shots there. Rahm withdrew, as we all know, so was going to be probably the favorite by far. Well, he was the betting favorite, and I would imagine would have been pretty popular in DraftKings. Answer tied the course record on Sunday last year, shooting a 63 to get runner-up. So it kind of came from behind there, and he holds that record with Burns, who's in the field, and it's probably going to be a popular play this week. Hadwin was a runner-up with Mickelson 2 years ago. If we all remember Adam's long play on 18 that day, just kind of stared him down, and no one thought he was going to do what he did. Tremendous hole to get his first win on tour. Landry, again, a runner-up in 2018. Hadwin, again, a runner-up in 2017. And then Lingmerth in 2016 was a runner-up. Key stats for me for the initial look: par 5 scoring, good drive, birdie or better, scoring opportunities inside 12 feet, and accurate approaches are the ones I use out of the PGA Tool Center on Gups Corner. Salary ranges with Rahm out. We got 10K has 4 guys, 9K 7 guys, 8K 11 guys. So it's really tight up there. You only get, with Rahm out, you got 22 of the 154 guys are 8K or above, which really means a lot of decision and fine combing through the 7 and 6K range, as well, the majority of the players are going to be in that range this week, and that's where you're going to have to, even if you go balanced bill, which isn't a horrible this week, you're still going to have to dig into that 7 and 6K range. And really, you got 125 guys almost in there to go through. So the Sweet 16 for me, if you're new to the pod, I do 4 tiers. I give 3 picks and a bubble boy in each tier. That gets us our 16 picks. I have a fade of the week, a sleeper of the week, and then 4 gut plays that may not rank quite as high, like top 25 in my rankings, but based on just everything around, I kind of like these guys as well. Betting strategy, one and done strategy, then we roll out of here. First tier, 9K or above. I will say I like Cantlay, but I do think he's going to be immensely popular. He potentially could make my final pool, but I think enough people won't go to Brooks this is assumption. I definitely I loved Brooks when Rahm was in it because I thought no one would go to Brooks. They either have Rahm or Cantley or drop down. I think Brooks could potentially pick up some more, but I think still a lot of people may go to Finau, Reed, all those other guys, or in general just save money and drop down in more of a hybrid build. So I'm sticking with Brooks. I like him this week. It is a high price tag. You know, he's always a tough one coming off a break to know how he's going to be. Could be shaking off rust. But the main reason I like him is I don't think I'm going to have him at a high ownership to get leverage on the field. So MME style, you know, I can, you know, if he's going to be 10%, you know, I can be level to the field at 10 or go a little bit over. He hasn't played here since 2016. He missed a cut at Mayakoba. Don't know how hard he's been grinding. He's one I'll earmark for press conferences. He's genuinely pretty straightforward in his press conferences, and if I get positive vibes on that, you know, then maybe he turns into a potential 2 or 3x type play for me over the field, depending on where the ownership gets. I don't think he's going to be very high owned, but we'll see. Not a horrible Bermuda putter, mid pack or so, you know, and maybe it helps him that he hadn't seen this, you know, all the courses here or played in the Pro-Am, and he just gets to kind of look at the course from a fresh eyes. But Brooks is one I like in here. My second one is Sungjae. Another one, he kind of, you know, I faded him last week. He made the cut but didn't do well. It was really, I mean, the fade of him and Answer was good for me enough to kind of make up for not having, you know, Na, Strillman, Morikawa types. $9,900. I don't want to say he burned everybody last week, but the people that had him, they didn't get their money back. You know, he got a 56th. He has a 10th here and a 12th here. He's top third in putting on the splits for me. 9th in my overall model. You know, a 5th at the TOC. He did miss a cut at the RSM. So, you know, I don't know how the community will gauge him, but he's one I could start my lineup with and feel perfectly fine with and go down. And again, I think he's going to be a good tournament play on MMEs at $9,900. I think other people may go other way or have a little nasty taste in their mouth after last week. Last one's Reed. I do like Reed this week. It's kind of between him and Finau for me. Because the Bubble Boy, we'll get to in a second, was locked in, but he's Bubble Boy for a reason. But I went with Reed. Hasn't played here since 2018. Not tremendous, you know, here. But if you start looking at how he played just the stadium course, and even if you want to put the Jack course in, a little bit better than his results here. 56th, a 12th, and then a missed cut. He's 7th in the field in putting splits for me this week, so I like that. I like that he played at the TOC, so he's kind of got that rust off. 18th in my stat model overall. Just have to kind of see how all these kind of shake out on the ownership now that Rahm's gone. You know, people, is Reed going to be a popular, or is, you know, I don't know if Reed and M are going to get, one's going to be popular, one's not. Is Finau completely overlooked, or everybody just kind of locks and loads him? Those are things that come into the deep diving as we get to Wednesday. But just out of the chute, I definitely like Reed this week at 10-2. My last one is Scheffler. And the only reason he's not in the top 3 is I believe he will be one of, if not the highest owned guys this week. 9,500, so huge savings off the top. 3rd here last year, 13th at the TOC. He's 4th in my stat model, 7th overall. Bermuda splits, though, he's not, I mean, he's 97th in the field for me, so a little bit to gun shy there. And that's it. I mean, it really just comes down to he's a bubble boy because I think he's going to be massively owned, and I'd rather pivot off of that if he's going to be. I like him for this tournament. He's not a guy that, I mean, he kind of fits everything that I'm looking at, but I can't have too much. You don't have too much chalk in your pool, and maybe he's a guy that I can pivot off of, kind of depend on how the others go out. So I have him on the bubble now, kind of seeing where that ownership shakes out for the week. Second tier, 8K range. This one was a little bit easier for me to dig through. Number 1 was Siwoo. Back-to-back weeks, he's number 1 in my rankings, 8,200. 25th last week. You know, so return to value. I think he was mid-7s last week, 7,600 or something like that. Decent history here, a 9th and 16, a 40th and 19. Did miss a cut last year. In my 5 stats, you know, he's a 1st, a 2nd, a 1st, and then a 15th, and he has one that he's mid-pack, 65th. So number 1 in the stats, number 6 in recent form, 9th in course fit. We know he loves Pete Dye courses, so he's my number one play of the week overall. We'll have him. Don't care if he gets chalky. I'll pivot elsewhere. Next is Sam Burns. This is a guy that I think could get chalky. I mentioned that earlier. Tied with the course record with Answer here. He had an 18th in 2019 and a 6th in 2020, so great course history. He's 23rd in putting splits, so great there. 17th in stats overall for me. Nothing not to like about him. Would really just have to absorb, what kind of chalk he's going to be. And that's a situation where I go, all right, if I don't want too much chalk, do I just go with Burns and maybe leave a Scheffler out so that my pool is naturally not as chalky by having both of them in? And it kind of depends on what's around them. I look at them in pockets and go, is there a viable option for me around Burns that makes sense more than Scheffler? Then maybe there's not, and so I go Scheffler and just fade Burns because there's no one else I like down there. Out the gate, I like Siwoo at 8,200. And then my third pick in this tier is Brian Harman. He's 8,100. So all three of them right there around the same price. Can certainly move around between those three depending on ownership if need be. Harman pretty good at course history here. He's 20th in the field in history for me, or course fit. 11th, 3rd, 20th, 21st with one miscut only out of the last 5 years. All top 21st, all top 21st or better. So solid results here in general. 33rd in putting splits, like that. 16th in stats overall, and he's 11th in my entire model overall in the week. So I like Harman. I don't see him. I think a lot more people would rather go to Siwoo and Burns. So Harman will probably be a pretty solid play, and just have to see the ownership on the other two. My bubble boy was Champ. I thought he would come out in the model a little better than what he did. He did get a 21st here last year, so I do like that. He doesn't have the best putting splits. He's one of the worst putting splits in the field. 31st at TOC, but remember there was only 40-ish guys there. Not as sharp on like opportunities inside 12 feet, stuff like that. Definitely a good drive, birdie or better guy. So for him, I would probably like him more the harder I think it'll play, because I think he can stay alive and not have to, be throwing darts all week long. But he's 8,900, so I don't need just a made cut. I need him flirting with a top 15 DK type scoring. He is 27th overall in my model, 32nd in stats, 26th in recent form. So it's not horrible. I just, for the price, I'm like, all right, do I get there or not by Wednesday? So that's the reason why he's on the bubble for me. We know he has the power game, but he actually does better at shorter courses so far. And this isn't necessarily shorter, but when you got 8 par 5s, that really bumps a guy like him for me, because that's, if you can play all 4 rounds, 16 opportunities at par 5s with Eagles, and he's one of the guys that have the ability to get there on some of these. So bubble boy for now. We'll see how it shakes out in the next 36 hours or so. 7K range. Start out with Cameron Davis. He's number 2 in my model overall. A guy I've been high on for a while now, over a year. 28th and 29th here the last 2 years. Definitely like that. He's 58th in Bermuda putting, which isn't horrible. Definitely top of the field. RSM missed the cut. A 31st at Sony, so made the cut last week. Paid, I think he was 7,200 last week. So I definitely had some of him. He's a guy that can take advantage of the par 5. So he's 3rd in par 5 scoring, 3rd, 6th, 5th, 9th, 34th. So, no issues there. He's 3rd in stat model overall for me. Number 2, like I said, I'll have a lot of Cam Davis this week. I like his upside here. And I like the fact he's made, top 30s the first 2 years he's played it. And he's one that can score in bunches if need be. So he's definitely one of my top plays of the week, Cam Davis. Straka, 7,400. Kind of gets talked up at times in the industry. He definitely roller coasters, here and there. 68th in Bermuda putting. He's actually number 1 in the course fit model. I do miscut in 19, but a 4th last year. But you go back and look at how he missed a cut in 19. Kind of not as good of a putting performance. Stats, he's 11th for me overall. 6th in par 5 scoring. So I like that. I like him on par 5, just kind of like a champ-ish. But, I don't know how popular he'll be. Some weeks he gets talked up, and some weeks people just kind of avoid him in general. A guy that I didn't mention, which is he'll be the bubble boy down here, is $100 more than him. I think will keep ownership off of Straka in general. Next up, Charlie Hoffman. I'll go right back to him from last week. Paid off well last week at 14. Got a 14th place last week. Not the greatest results here so far. He is 38th in Bermuda split, so I like that. But a miscut, 61st. So, you know, he seems like a very personable guy. So I wouldn't think the, pro-am environment would hinder him. But the anecdotal part of that is we don't know. Maybe he just hates slow rounds in general. So having to play in that hurts him. I don't know. I just know, other than his performance here, he's done really well outside of everything else I'm looking at. So at 7,400, again, he's going to be around that chalky zone of Redmond and people like that. I don't mind going to him at a super low ownership if people are going to eat up Redmond. That's straight to the bubble boy. It is Redmond. 21st on my model. 25th in putting, 29th here last year. He's just like Scheffler for me. Only reason why he's not one of my favorite is I think he's going to be super chalky, which, Gups Corner is been big Doc fans for a couple of years now. And so definitely like him. I think the price just puts him in a very chalky situation. And as much as I would hate to pivot off of that, I do like Cam Davis. I do like Straka. I do like Hoffman. Chris Kirk's right there coming off, getting his car back. Tringali's right there, who's a guy that's on my radar. Gooch even, missed the cut last week, but he's got a great course history here, 17th, 4th, and 67th. So there's a plenty of options there that if he does start garnishing a bunch of ownership, I certainly don't mind either fading or be super lighter on him than the field and get some exposure elsewhere. But that's why he's on the bubble, is kind of, I think, between Scheffler, Burns, and Redmond. All of them will probably be top 8-ish in ownership, could be top 5. And I just don't think you want to start a big MME pool with all those guys. So as we get into Sunday and get through some of the other content, I kind of clear up where I want to be on some of these guys. So I put some in the bubble boy. 6,900 or less, our last tier. First up for me is Batia. I played him probably virtually every time he's been on, played around. He made the cut, got a 52nd at Mayakoba, $6,500. All we need is a made cut here. Limited data here, but he's second in my stat model, 19th overall. First in accurate approach, second in opportunities inside 12 feet, first in birdie or better, 16th in par 5, 58th in good drives. He did miss the cut here last year, I believe, as an amateur. I don't think he had turned pro yet. In the limited model, doesn't have the best Bermuda splits by any means. He's one of the worst, but in general, I just need to make the cut, and I don't know how much he gets talked up. He's definitely on my betting radar as far as top 20 type bets. He's 250 to 1. I like having him in this kind of field. Anything can happen. I don't think he needs to be dominant anywhere, and he looks to have a pretty good, approach game. Probably the deep dive. I want to see how he is around the green and stuff like that. But I like some Batia this week. Adam Schenk is second for me, $6,700, 28th in the overall model, a 14th, a 67th, and a miscut here. So decent up, up and down. Miscut, and a 48th coming into here. Not saying I don't care about the miscuts, but we've seen guys come to this course. Landry, Long, both have 3 or more miscuts in a row coming in here and happen to win. Does that change this week because of tougher conditions, meaning the pins mainly more than anything, not having the easy course? I don't know. I mean, we just don't. That's anecdotal for me to say that. I'm leaning it's going to play definitely harder than it has, but I think it's going to play harder than what most people are thinking. I like Adam Schenk in that situation. He's top 30 in every stat that I'm looking at, top 33 or better in every stat, 7th in par 5 scoring, which is, a big one I'm looking at this week. So I like some Schenk this week. Last one in this tier before the bubble boy is Scott Stallings, 6,600. An 8th, then a miscut, 55th, a 63rd at the RSM. The one thing, I almost put him on the bubble, but not playing since RSM is a lot of time off. But at 6,600, it's not like you're needing him to go out here and win it. So went ahead and moved him into the top 3. 65th in Bermuda, so nothing horrible. 31st in overall stat model, 30th total. So I like him this week. He's another one you can put long shot type stuff on, 200 to 1. My bubble boy was Will Gordon. He's kind of my kryptonite. I cannot get him right. I play him all the time. Really, the only thing that kept me off of him being in the top 3 is, you know, out of the last 4 tournaments, miscut, miscut, miscut. He's 50th in putting split, 7th in my stats. He's always a stat darling type. 18th, 15th, 4th. His opportunities inside 12 feet is the worst, and that's 95th, but everything else looks great. So, again, 6,400, you just need a made cut. Doesn't seem to be something he's done a whole lot of recently, but he's going to be a 1-2%er. So if you're doing MME builds and you throw 5% of them in there with some upside, I think his game, his ceiling is definitely good, but it's just a matter of timing when he pops. That's why he's on the bubble, though, for me. Fade of the week, I went back and forth on several guys here. I ended up on Paul Casey. I don't see the 8,700 with him. You know, this is his first tournament for sure in a while. And at times I guess I just see him coming off a break like that and kind of, you know, I don't want to say struggling, but I'm not jumping to a Paul Casey at 8,700 as it sits here today. Maybe he's not talked about at all and becomes a potential value option, but the other guys around him that I like who are going to be popular, you know, may pull some stuff off of him, but like Lanto's 86. I think Casey's, you know, a good solid name that people will go to. He's 90th in my model, so that was the main deal. He's got okay history here, 58th and a 21st. His Bermuda splits aren't great, so I just didn't see anything I'd maybe jump and pay $8,700 for a Paul Casey this week. So he's my fade of the week. My sleeper of the week, and I kind of have him in that 2 to 4% ownership right now, is Lucas Glover. 12th in my model, $7,500. A 17th, 41st, 29th, and 12th here before missing the cut last year. Really coming in with some good form. A 23rd at RSM, a 5th at Mayakoba. The one downside for him is he didn't play the Hawaii swing. Doesn't have the best putting splits on Bermuda, but recently has done okay when you look at some of that stuff, and especially here. 6th in the stat model overall and 24th in recent form. So, you know, not a guy I'm going to have to get super overweight on. Max, he'll probably be is 5%, but I bet he's closer to 3, 4. So it's $7,500 for a guy that's inside my top 20 in the rankings. I like Lucas Glover this week. Gut feel plays. Number 1 is Scott Piercy. He's 47th overall in the model, or 48, sorry. $7,100. Good course history here. 41st, 6th, 57th, 61st. Good and meaning 4 straight made cuts. Remember, I don't take the miscut made cut too seriously, as it used to be a 3-day cut. So last year the cut was -9 here. So you had guys that shot 8 under through 3 days, missed the cut. So, you know, take that with a grain of salt. An 18th at the RSM, a 40th at Mayakoba. He played last week and missed the cut, but I do like that he at least played. Like I said, he's not popping across much, but, you know, as a gut feel play down there, you know, low 40s, high 40s, 48th, I could take a stab on him. JT Poston, a guy that was somewhat popular last week, missed the cut, 7,300. Don't see a lot of people going back to him. Decent on course history, a 34th, a 7th, a 37th with a missed cut in 2018. He's 5th in the putting, so I really like that. If he gets a hot putter, just needing to make a cut and have some upside. Does not look great, you know, across the board in the stat model. So he's kind of a guy you just, you know, like, that's why they're gut field plays, right? 114th, I think, overall in the stat model, 63rd in general. So okay form when you're looking at tee to green, and then his history here lets him be, you know, on my radar. Hudson Swafford is my 3rd one. Obviously won here in 2017. Has a 56, a 29th, a 65th around that before missing the cut last year. He's played back-to-back in Hawaii with a 35th, which is almost last, so that's not you know, get excited about. But then he get a 25th last week, so made the cut, did well. He's 35th in stats for me. Just doesn't have the best form coming in. History here is okay. So, I mean, there's upside there, but he's 7,000, so kind of back to what we were talking about earlier. You need a made cut and some upside there. 36 in the Bermuda split, so I like that. If he found something last week to get him inside that top 25, maybe he rides that into this week. So definitely a guy that's lower in my rankings that I'm a little higher on. The last one, and I'll probably butcher the name, is Nelson Ledesma, 6,100. I looked at him last week. I knew he was 6,000, and I didn't pull the trigger because he was popping, but he was limited data. He made the cut, got 47th. He's played here, which I at least like that he's familiar. A miscut. Again, limited data, but he's second in my Bermuda splits. 29th in the stat model. Does not have all the data like some of these other players, but at 6,100, deep shot flyer type. He's a gut feel. I looked at his name, stared at it last week, didn't pull it. I wish I would have. Not that 47th is anything, but at 6,000 men last week, that have been huge. So he's a guy that could definitely make an MME pool for me. Betting strategy. This week I go kind of the top 5 and top 5 the pop, and then look at 2 long shots. For me, Cam Davis was number 1, 66-1. Brooks was 20-1. He moved down since Rom withdrew. I liked him at the 20-1 number. I think you can probably still find close to that 18-20. Glover, as I mentioned, kind of that sleeper. He's 80-1. Redmond, 66-1. He's a guy that I could bet, especially if I'm fading in DraftKings. And just, okay, if he wins, then I'll take that. And, avoid the chalk potential in DraftKings situation. And then Straka, 80-1. So, another guy that potentially could be a little chalky. I don't think he'll be anything you got to move off of, but 80-1's a solid number there for him. Was high on him in the preseason pod I did. He is in my season-long kind of deal that you pick for the whole year. So I like him at 80-1. 2 long shot bets. Batia is one I mentioned earlier, 250-1. You don't have to bet that if you don't want, but top 10, top 20 type bets should return good money. And then Will Gordon was the other one, 250-1. Same deal, top 10, top 20 type stuff. And I think I mentioned Stallings at 201 during the podcast earlier. One and done strategy, we're only in week 2, so nothing crazy to get out here. I still think you're in the mindset of playing the best guy that you could get some ownership on. But in general, just playing I had Neiman last week. I had Siwoo, and I can't remember my third. All 3 of them made the cut, so that was good for the eliminator. I think it's Palmer. Siwoo and Palmer just finished okay, but Neiman, obviously got me up there. So, the biggest difference, I think, the biggest thing you have to, at this point in time in the season, is what I say to myself is this a guy I would play in a big money pot, a major, or maybe one of these big WGCs or something like that, that winning is going to give you so much more money. So if you think you may play a Reed or a Cantley or someone like that, you may hold off. But outside of that, I would just play my best guy. I'd be, I like Sung Jae this week. He was used a lot last week, so he may have been number 1. I can't remember, but maybe not a lot of people are going back to him. That's a good high equity play that may get a lower ownership. So I like Sung Jae this week. I like Reed this week. People may hold him for a major. Finau's a guy that, I don't imagine most people are going to hold back for a major. I don't know how much he's going to get talked about this week. Pretty good form coming in, a 31st and 8th. He had a 14th here last year. We definitely love him on par 5s. He's a guy I like. He's just one of those guys who's just on the outside of everything, right? So see how the deep dive comes in and see if he moves up. But you could definitely use, if you guys are on my site, my projected ownership and stuff as a type to gauge where you think people will come in on the one and done. But as you get into the season, that'll be less and less relevant because you'll have to look at how many times the guy's been used already. So it could be popular in DraftKings, but he's also been used already a ton. So that's one of the things to keep an eye on. Skins play, I'm not there yet. Like I mentioned last week, I don't think we should be going for skins yet, especially with the eliminator deal. I guess if you felt like you started off horribly last year, you got a miscut, maybe you had answer, and you got a miscut, so you're out of that. You don't really like the top of the board here. Brooks is probably a guy you want to save for a major. Maybe you do go for a Gooch type or a Cameron Davis or a Glover. I don't know how people are going to pick Glover, Hoffman. Any of those kind of guys if you're really looking for that skins play. But I think I'd be more focused on getting as much points as I can right now. I'd save the skin for a little later on when you kind of see where you are in the segment and stuff like that. On Carbon Contest, Josh's contest, JB's contest. So in general, I think big field, a lot to digest. The deep dive and information from the pressers and stuff in the next 24 hours is going to be more important this week than some weeks. I want to hear how the guys are talking about the course setup, you know, how they feel, especially some of these guys that didn't play the Hawaii swing. It's all anecdotal, but at this time when you're trying to break down with so much unknown about a tournament that's playing this way for the first time, you know, in a while, you know, on these two courses, no amateur, so it could definitely be set up a little harder. So I want to listen to that kind of stuff, and it really will, you know, it's a great time to, you know, obviously be a part of the membership and the community here, because that information can change a lot by the time we get to Wednesday afternoon on the E9, which we got pretty much worked out. We'll have that ready to roll. Last week had our services updated on both ends, and so some things that went wrong with the live feed, but we should have all that ready to go tomorrow. And as long as Kenny's work schedule allows, he's going to join me again tomorrow night, so that should be fun. That'll be probably 5 Eastern, 4 o'clock Central Time. You know, so if you want to mark your calendar there, and I'll update. If there's any concerns of it not going live, I'll let you guys know. And always I'll be in Slack and stuff like that, but you know, I think it's a good week that we can take some chances, and I think the more work we put in on some of these harder, you know, spots, I don't necessarily mean you have to pivot off ownership and stuff like that, but I think in general getting a solid pool with some upside and guys that people aren't really comfortable with, but you know, are you're splitting hairs between them and in the next level. I think there's a lot of those guys that, as we get through the deep dive, will kind of shine to us and give us a good opportunity this week. Really excited to get the new site rolling out. I do think it's going to be ahead of schedule, way ahead of schedule from the original announcement. So I can't wait for you guys to see that. If you're not a member yet, come join us now. Again, GC20 or Smash 20 gets you 20% off any membership. If you have any questions on that, shoot me a message and I'll answer them for you. If you were an old member or a loyalty member and you want to upgrade, reach out to me as well and see what we can do for you. Appreciate it. I hope you guys have a blessed week, and we'll see you tomorrow for E9.